The second raid in the World Eater and the Hierophant series is over, and today I want to go through my raid recap, how I did, and talk about what you should be getting depending on where you are in the game. Hey everyone, Derpy here, and welcome back to another Battle Pirates video. As I get started, I do want to mention that you can use the YouTube timeline bar to jump to specific sections that you're interested in, be that the World Eater targets, the Hierophant targets, or the overall recap, raid performance, stuff like that. So the short story about how I personally did is I got 50 million points by doing 15 sets. This is generally pretty low, and that's because I missed about 3 to 4 days of the raid due to some traveling for work, which is why you only saw videos on the World Eater targets rather than the Hierophant targets. So that's 51 million at just under 2,000 globally. Not a lot of people playing and getting a lot of points here, so that's pretty interesting. Let me know how you did in the comments down below. In terms of my specific performance in these targets, I did hit a whole bunch, like I said, 15 sets worth, but I hit a whole bunch of 102s because I could just auto those ones with my World Eaters and get about 31 minutes of damage depending on if I had a Steelhead's crew or not, and if I did a few of the later upgrades to my fleet by adding in the last ship to X1, adding in some heavy armor and stuff like that. In terms of the 103, I absolutely hated this target because I could not auto it. Autoing was about 2 hours, maybe an hour and a half damage for this one because of the shrouded elements in the target. It did depend on exactly where you entered. I was able to drive this for instant base repair. I showed that on a video, but actually what I did most of the time was I just bull rushed this thing, going around in a quick circle in a pattern that hit all the shrouded buildings, but definitely went into range of a lot of things I should not have gone into range with for about 45 minutes of repair. Now I did this just because this was the one target that I was forced to drive, and I wanted to get as many of them done as possible. In fact, I could have done a few more because I do have a bunch of 1 and 2 stacked up and still some help left on my Hierophant. So there's the World Eater targets. In general, I like the 102. You could drive it for instant repair, or you could auto it for reasonable repair. The 103, while I don't necessarily expect the same exact easiness of driving, it was a little bit too hard in my opinion. And then, of course, I did get a bunch of chests stack up for this one. I did actually also have several open from last raid that I opened at the very start and got maybe 200,000 points, which is not really worth anything, worth less than a single target. Switching over now to the Hierophant targets. Actually, before we do that, I do want to go over my build for the World Eaters. They are currently repairing, as you can see here, and they're definitely not retaliators, ignore that. I still actually need to add in the heavy armors to my build. I'm going to do that with build tokens, which I have several of those, and if I don't have enough, I'll use that in the TLC the next time it pops up. Oblivion World Eater is a damaged ship, and again, I have some refits I need to do to add in better weapons if I have those. I think I should have mostly 2-star or better at this point. So the flagship is a standard damage build. I talked about this extensively in the build video and the last raid recap, so check that out if you're curious. And then the damaged ships will eventually all look like this one in terms of the equipment rarity and stuff like that. This one has heavy armors and it's going to be fantastic. I do have another damaged ship which is missing those heavy armors, so just ignore those ones. And the UAV ships, or anti-UAV ships I should say, have Gales, which also shoot at missiles because reasons, and those also do need some love in terms of heavy armor and stuff like that, but I'll get around to that when the TLC comes out and I can use build tokens for those ones. And then I ran this with a Steelhead's crew every time because that straight up just saves you 15% damage. I don't yet have the problem like everyone else where I have 200 out of 100 crews and I only have those pay-to-win crews that people are using. But that's besides the point. There's the World Eater setup. No changes for next raid. My biggest recommendation to you is to have at least 2 Gale ships. If you do not, you're going to be in for a very, very sad time in these targets. If you use 3, that's okay. I'm not mad at you. Just do whatever works out for you. So there is the World Eater setup, and let's now go over the Hierophant targets. These were actually awesome because I could auto them. I was able to do the 1202 for just about 11 minutes of repair 100% on auto. The hard part was actually the time to kill it, which was about 5 minutes. Same for the 1203, I was autoing this one, but I was getting more like 31 minutes of repair, or 35 I should say. 35 minutes in the 1203 rather than 11 in the 1202. That still means I can do an absolute ton of them, and my limiting factor is my world leaders rather than my hierophants. So that's the interesting takeaways from those ones. The build actually has had a slight update, which I haven't posted anywhere for the Hierophant. I've added in a few of the limited weapons and stuff. I have the heavy weapons on here now because I have 2 of these unlocked at E8. I do have the Captain Hazard Officer and then the second choice, which is the Guidance Officer Broxi. I did make an extensive section on officers in the last raid recap video. I would check that out if you're curious. It was pretty informative, and I'll discuss that a little bit more in this one as well. And then I did actually replace the biomass targeting console with the fathomless requillary, if you can pronounce that word Kixeye throws at you. This is just slightly better in terms of a few stats, does not make a huge difference, came out in Strike. I put it on there because it's better and I had some tokens for it, but if you didn't have this, I wouldn't waste limited raid points on this one. So that's my raid performance on these ships. No major build changes expected between now and the next raid. We might get escalation specials in Strike for the world leaders, so just be prepared for that one if you are not. Now, I do actually want to go over the what to get in terms of prizes. The first 3 things I'm not getting are World Leader skins. Now, these skins, while they look cool, and they actually give you 5% penetrative damage, which is generally new, are not really worth 20 million points to me, because 20 million points for 5% penetrative damage is a little crazy. I only got 50 billion in this raid. I'm not going to spend 40% of it on one item. That's kind of crazy. But they will work, and if you don't see the stats working, refresh, it should apply. I'm not playing around with any of these crews because a one-time use for 5 million points is kind of crazy. If I wanted to get this and do a great job for an hour, which you don't even see the duration on these, in these world leader targets in the next raid, I would do that, but these are, not really worth it unless you're overflowing on points. What is definitely worth it, and you definitely should get, is the World Leader Capital Core, as well as the Flagship World Leader Capital Core. You need to redeem all of these to get your ships from X1 to Cap 1, which is Kixeye's sneaky way of making you spend more points rather than just use kits you already had or something. Definitely need to redeem these, and you need to be very strategic with the upgrade timing on this one for your flagship, because you probably want to use this one in the TLC. Definitely go ahead and get those ones. We'll come back to the Hierophant Officer chests because I do want to actually discuss tokens and stuff first. In terms of other prizes and what you individually should get, you should get things that are 1, used currently in the game, and 2, will help you in the future. So don't spend points on anything siege. We don't want to do any retaliator tech, and none of that is worth it to you whatsoever right now, because that is all old tech and is maybe used in the Forsaken mission, but is not used going forward. The number 1 mistake players make in this game, at least if you're trying to play like I play it, is spending money, time, and shipyard time on old tech. You should never spend any of that on old tech. Ignore siege, ignore the garrison other than the world leader and hierophant, which I guess world leader is assault. Ignore skirmish. You don't want to be building the ship that came out around here. It's really just not worth it. In terms of dreadnoughts, you can get Hierophant stuff to make your Hierophant better. It still has a relatively long useful life, so get either Hierophant or World Leader stuff, and that's what you should focus on. In terms of the tokens, you will want to make sure you're maxed out on the 2-day structure build tokens, because we are expecting Outpost 14, 16, 17, whatever the number is, actually this month. So you want to make sure you have enough tokens to get the Outpost done, your labs done, your dock done, all that fun stuff. Now, what I actually am going to spend most of my tokens on is going to be the World Leader Upgrade token and the Flagship World Leader Upgrade tokens. Let's go ahead and max those out right here, see if I can redeem 5 of them or if I'm at capacity. I actually hate the clicking that I have to do every time I do this. So I got the flagship ones, and let's get the standard World Leader Upgrade tokens as well. This is spending a bunch of my points here, but it's worth it because I'll be able to get my ships to Cap 1 much more easily between now and next raid. If you are generally still catching up, it's probably still helpful to get upgrades for the World Leader over, say, a limited component that takes you from 1% damage to 10% more damage or something like that. So just keep that in mind here. It might be worth it to get upgrade tokens instead of limited tech. There are also defender build tokens, which can be useful if you're not at capacity for those ones. But again, I wouldn't spend any time on things like the Pathfinder, the Myrmidon, anything like that. Retaliator, all that stuff is old, and you really shouldn't be spending points on that one because it's not going to be useful for very long. Now, there is also a limited selection of PvP tech out there. In general, the stuff here is new, or is not new, but it is generally useful, and it's generally things people are using in their bases. There are not rangers or anything crazy like that. This in the PvP tech section. If you look in the whole store section, you see a bunch of flagships that are limited. Like, I don't need another Hierophant, although it's 700k. That definitely feels like a mistake. It should be 7 million, so let's go ahead and buy that one just because that would be funny to take advantage of a Kixeye mistake there. So if I need a second Hierophant now, I can build one for basically free because it's 700k. But again, no rangers or anything crazy like this one in the store for PvP or defender stuff. Now, what I'm going to spend the rest of my points on, other than the World Leader and Hierophant upgrade tokens, I guess I should say only World Leader because there are not Hierophant ones, at least not that I saw. Again, this scroll bar is really difficult. I put in suggestions to try and remove that, and they banned me from putting in more suggestions. So, if someone else wants to put that suggestion in, you can do it. You just might get banned, so watch out. You will also want to make sure you have enough upgrade kits to get your Hierophant upgraded to the maximum level. I do have a chart in the description of my YouTube videos that shows you how many kits or fragments, I should say, you need to get the Hierophant from E8 to E9 to E10. So make sure you have enough of those. It would be unfortunate if you were to get to the next raid, say, or if you were to get to the strike where the upgrades for this one come out, and you don't actually see enough, and you don't actually have enough kits to do that. So if you hold a second here, I'll actually be able to get my upgrade times and upgrade kits document pulled up here on screen because it, it's generally helpful. So taking a look here, you can see, if you bear with me for a second on the tabs, you can see that this actually shows all the kits, fragments, etc. And if you look at the Dreadnought one, you need 150 for E9 and then 200 for E10. You could plan to just get those in strike when they come out, which may be what I'm going to do here, although you should definitely be strategic about this one. We will likely only have a 4-day upgrade for each one, so tokens are not the end of the world, but you need to have fragments to do this. They are generally not offered in a lot of places, so just keep that in mind here. Now, if you look in game, you actually can't see how many upgrade kits you have if you are at maximum. What I did is I submitted a support ticket. Let's see if I can see the history of my support ticket, which you may or may not be able to do. And you can see that if I pan over and let you guys see all this stuff, you can see that I submitted a support ticket and said, hey, can you please check how many Hierophant kits I have in my account? The support ticket system is awful, by the way. You have to press skip, you get error messages. It keeps closing the chat on you if you're typing something for a long time, which is really annoying because I'm trying to be detailed and you're closing the chat. Now, I did send a message and asked how many I had. I have 185. Player support can check. And this guy, shout out Victor here, he made a feedback, saying that to Kixeye, it's kind of dumb that you can't see how many kits you have if you're at maximum level. Again, I submitted a suggestion on this one and got banned from suggestions for doing that. So I would, appreciate it if someone else could forward that suggestion on there because I currently actually can't talk in that one. So I have 185 Hierophant upgrade fragments, and if I look in the raid in what I need here, 185 means that I can get to E9 but not to E10. So I could spend the difference, or I could just plan to get that in strike, which is likely what I'm going to do because I can start E9 and then get a whole bunch of points in strike and get up to the last 200 needed. Okay. So what am I actually going to spend my extra points on? Thank you, Victor. We can close player support now. It's going to be the Hierophant officer chests. I did make a more detailed video last raid and I got all 10 of them. I only have enough points for 2 of them. But if you didn't know how these chests work, is that there's a cap on the number of crews you have, which actually you currently can't see in any way. So I might have, 3 copies of the Captain Hazard 2-star officer. I probably don't. It's probably just 1 or 2. But if you have 3 copies of one already and you open a new chest, you can't get that one. So the first 10 chests you open in the first strike are probably going to be 1-star officers, 1-star captains, etc. If you open, the second round and you're maxed and you already have 3 of the first copy of the 1-star, you're going to be much more likely to get 2 stars, 3 stars, etc. as you keep opening chests. So if I could open all 10, it would be helpful not only now, but next raid if I wanted to try and open, 10 more in the next strike, in the next raid whatsoever. I think it's actually, pretty much only going to be the raids. And that's token chest. Here's the officer chest. So these ones are probably not going to be very good, but if I got all 10 of them for 40 million points, and then in the next raid got another 10, those ones would be even better, is the short way of saying it. So generally it's still worth it, even if you're not going to get a ton of value out of these immediately. Opening these 2 chests, I got a 1-star officer, which is trash, and a 2-star officer of one I already have the 3-star version of, so I just basically wasted 8 million points unless it's going to be useful in the next raid, and I'm now maxed out on the copies of this navigator officer I have, and will get the 3-star version next time. At least that's the general idea. So that's the raid recap in terms of how well I did, in terms of officers, in terms of kits and stuff like that needed. If you have questions, let me know. Again, I am curious to see how you all did. I shared that I got, before the raid ended, about 2,000th place at 51 million points, which was a not whole lot for me. With that said, until next time, I want to give a huge thank you to the channel members whose names are appearing on the end screen now. They're helping make videos like this one possible. And until next time, this is Derpy signing out, helping you be a better pirate.